Heyo, Duck of the Stars here, back at it with another video actually requested by you guys again. Before we get started, if you could consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel if you haven't done so already, I'd really appreciate it, as it's you guys' continued support which keeps me afloat. We actually just reached 300 subscribers a couple of weeks ago, and I cannot put into words what your support means to me. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and without further ado, please enjoy the rest of the video. So, Tears of the Kingdom. I know I'm a little late to the review party here. 2 months late, in fact.
The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom is a phenomenal game.
What took you so long, idiot?
I took this extra time to prepare this video because I wanted to get a full understanding and appreciation of this game. And I believe I finally have the ability here to give you my honest opinion. Since you've read the title of this video, you understand I'm not going to be making any controversial claims here. Obviously, this game is great, critics and gamers alike are eating it up, and for good reason. To me, it feels like a swan song for the now dated Nintendo Switch, and if you haven't picked up a copy already, I'd like to explain to you why. I should probably mention that there will be some minor spoilers throughout this review. I'm not going to leak any big secrets, however, the small bit of gameplay I selected does feature characters which you may not know about until later in the game. So just be warned that if you're sensitive about this kind of thing, that one of my other videos may interest you more for the time being. For the rest of y'all, let's get right into it. To be completely honest, I almost didn't buy Tears of the Kingdom at launch. Although its predecessor Breath of the Wild has a special place in my heart, I was very worried about picking up and playing this game. I was concerned with performance first and foremost. However, I also had my doubts about both the building mechanic as well as Nintendo's vertical gameplay structure, that is to say, the depths, Hylia, and the sky. In retrospect, I'm really not sure why I was so afraid of these gameplay gimmicks. I've put in about 70 hours into this game by now, and I can say that Nintendo has thoroughly convinced me. This is one of the best games that I have ever played, and let's talk about why that is. By now, Nintendo is no stranger to making sequels when people want them. And of course, by now, they know how to make those games good. Playing through this game evoked memories of my childhood, and at first I couldn't figure out what it was. And then I remembered they'd done this same exact thing before on the Wii. They've actually done this quite a bit in the 21st century. Twice on the GameCube with both Pikmin and Metroid Prime, and then once again on the Wii, Super Mario Galaxy. Because Mario Galaxy is the only game that I actually grew up with as a kid, that's the one I'm most well versed in, that's the one we'll talk about here. Although in all three cases, the idea was, people want more of these games, so let's just give them more. Nintendo just kind of has this knack for finding out what works and sticking with it until people get really, really sick of it. In all three cases, although I speak from experience from Super Mario Galaxy, it worked. This idea that we just need to create the same thing with a couple more gimmicks, but give you the same core experience, it just fit perfectly. I was afraid that this would be the same case, although I'm not sure why when it came to Tears of the Kingdom. I think it had something to do with the fact that Hyrule had already been explored to the most minute detail, so what more could it really have to offer? Even if we had these two new worlds, Hyrule would have been the same. I think it really hit me as soon as I reached the surface of Hyrule that I didn't care how similar it was to the first game. It's been 6 years since Breath of the Wild launched, which means that it really has been 5 years since I played the game seriously. In the last 6 years, even just speaking about my gaming experience, so much has changed. I've embraced entire new genres that I never would have played in my childhood. I've expanded far beyond just playing Nintendo games. Life moves forward, and I think Nintendo did a great job of capitalizing on this fact. They knew it would take a long time for the game to release, and so, as I grew, so did Hyrule. All of the characters that we knew in Breath of the Wild had grown up considerably, had undergone major character development without us there. It almost felt like, as I grew up, even without playing the game, they grew up with me. And upon this realization, I couldn't stop myself from visiting as many of my favorite locations as possible. I didn't even care about the story at this point, I just wanted to see how Sidon, Teba, Yunobo, and Riju were doing. Especially because the last time we heard about them canonically, this is what they were up to.
Now my moment has finally come. Brace yourself, Ganon, for the sting of my revenge!
This will be our final opportunity. We will not fail.
Let's go, little guy. Now, open up wide, Ganon!
100 years in the making. Hold on, princess. Our moment has arrived.
This is what I mean by more Breath of the Wild becoming a good thing, and how Nintendo utilized the relationship already built with these characters to further enhance the gameplay experience. While many of us who played the original have matured, so has Hyrule. I want to be clear when I say I praise Tears of the Kingdom with its predecessor in mind. Of course, Tears of the Kingdom is a phenomenal game, but it's a phenomenal game built on top of an already outstanding experience, and that is no easy feat. Let's not forget that Breath of the Wild also shattered expectations from critics and fans alike. If just looking at Metacritic user score, Breath of the Wild on its Wii U release was the third highest ranked game of the year, only topped by Super Mario Odyssey, and at number 1 itself on Nintendo Switch. Breath of the Wild also ranks as the 14th highest game of all time, which is funny because that means it couldn't beat out Super Mario Galaxy 1 or 2, a take I will controversially agree with. But I digress. To say that Tears of the Kingdom has managed to take what Breath of the Wild has done and make it better also takes into account the insane amount of hype that Breath of the Wild had for it. For those who weren't aware, this Nintendo Switch launch title started as a Wii U game, its early development dating back to I believe 2012 or 2013 when the Wii U first launched. This also explains why Breath of the Wild is a dual exclusive, appearing both on Wii U and Switch. As the Wii U failed to make a dent in history, Zelda U, as it was called back then, got stuck in sort of a development hell. Very little was known about the game until 2016, where Nintendo made their entire E3 presentation based off of it. In 2016, it was announced that it would be releasing the next year in 2017, both as a Wii U title and as a title for the Nintendo NX, which we would later find out was the Switch. In January of 2017, Nintendo held the Nintendo Switch presentation, in which they showed off a slew of games to be released on their console, the last of which being The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. In what was perhaps one of the most badass game trailers of all time, they announced that it would launch with the Nintendo Switch on March 3rd, 2017. And as I've already said, it was released with almost unmatched critical acclaim. I personally can't think of another time in my life in which a Nintendo game received more hype than it did here. And to that extent, Tears of the Kingdom just excels at bringing us more. In terms of content, there's just so much more to do in Tears of the Kingdom. We have 152 more shrines to explore, up from Breath of the Wild's 120. Towers, more gear, more weapons, more memories, more lore. If you felt like Breath of the Wild lacked lore about either the Zonai or just the general history of Hyrule, you will not be disappointed by this game. This game is seriously all you could ever ask for, short of taking you back 10,000 years to let you fight Ganondorf for the first time yourself. Tears of the Kingdom really gives you a deep insight never before seen in any other Zelda game. And Nintendo, I fully give you permission to take that idea and make a game out of it. I don't care if it breaks canon somehow, make it happen. Now let's start actually looking at some of the gameplay mechanics that I was so worried about. With the reappearance of the Zonai, obviously comes the reappearance of Zonai technology. It's the basis for the building mechanic throughout the game. It replaces the Sheikah technology from the first game, and while I'm a little bit upset that they didn't explain what happened to the Sheikah tech, I don't think many of us paid much attention to it. And this seems to be Nintendo's goal. Since Link is given Rauru's hand at the very beginning of the game, we're allowed to access pretty much every aspect of Zonai technology from the get-go. Much like Breath of the Wild, the first 4 shrines are dedicated to teaching us the new abilities. Of these abilities, probably the most important one is the ability to pick up objects and attach them to others. Overall, it felt like an improvement from the magnet ability in Breath of the Wild, in which you were only able to pick up metal objects. I was excited for this ability even in the trailers. I was concerned about how much you'd have to rely on it to get through the game. As it turns out, this ability is almost optional, with very few events actually requiring you to build any complex machinery outside of shrines. On top of this, it didn't feel as clunky or annoying as I initially expected. I was sort of shocked that I didn't have to build vehicles to reach the sky. Instead, most airborne structures can be reached through various towers scattered throughout Hyrule. And let me tell you, it never gets old to fling Link into the air, especially since you get a view of Hyrule never before imaginable due to the height limitations of Breath of the Wild. Exploring the sky is way more exciting than I thought it would be, but I still prefer traversing on the ground. I was impressed that all 3 worlds, if you can call them that, didn't take any time to load. And that brings me to the depths. Honestly, I avoided going here until it was absolutely necessary to do so, and there are a few points in the story that require you to go down and explore. I like a challenge, but the depths just seemed obnoxious to me. I thought that I would have to individually illuminate the entire underground. Luckily, Nintendo thought ahead and gave us these light routes that would give you a certain amount of light. The more you activate, the better you can see the surrounding area. I still find it kind of annoying that you can't see very much without them. Of course, I go into the depths with the understanding that it's going to be dark, but I did spend an embarrassing amount of time fumbling around, figuring out where the hell I'm supposed to go. I do think that the Po currency system and the amount of items you can find in the depths in general are awesome. They're both great in their own right. I'm just not one that likes to deal with dark spaces in any video game, including this one. Don't get me wrong, the depths have grown on me substantially, but I will still continue to spend most of my time in Hyrule proper. The only area where I was correct in my initial assumption was the area of performance. Of course, the Nintendo Switch is outdated at this point. It came out on the same day as Breath of the Wild, and even that game pushed it to its limits at certain points. Given the recent controversial performance of both Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, as well as Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I think everyone here was quite worried about how the game would run, especially given that it is a much larger game than Breath of the Wild. As one ought to expect, there are noticeable frame rate drops when a lot of things are happening on the screen at one time. However, these bouts of lag are never really enough to seriously hinder gameplay experience. It's impressive how much Nintendo packed into this tiny machine while still making its performance optimal. Would I like to see a patch released on Nintendo's next console to upgrade the game's graphics and performance? Of course. The game looks quite beautiful as it is, and I can say from my experience that I have had no trouble progressing through the game when it comes to performance. Short of a 4-hour mega review, I don't think I could put into words how many improvements Nintendo made to this title in the Legend of Zelda franchise. I've already put it into the title, but I'll say it again, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a masterpiece. This game has proven that Nintendo is listening to its fans, and that it will continue to do so that it doesn't make any mistakes like they might have in the past. Although recently I've been quite critical of Nintendo, this game, much like its predecessor, has me excited for what they have in store for us in the future. And if even now, 2 months after the launch of the game, you have your reservations about the game, I encourage you to pick it up and play it for yourself. Even if you weren't a fan of Breath of the Wild, I encourage you to try the game, and I can assure you that Nintendo has taken huge steps to address the problems people brought up with their predecessor. One thing is certain. The positive impact left by Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom will be felt on the Zelda community for years to come. 2023 has and will continue to be a monumental year for video games, with huge releases coming up that may rival some of the best games of all time. It's amazing to think that this game might not even win Game of the Year this year, given it will be up against games like Hogwarts Legacy and Starfield. Though after my in-depth playthrough of the game, my money is on Nintendo to bring home the gold once again. If you feel the same way, or especially if you don't, please consider leaving a comment down below or joining my Discord server so we can engage in further discussion. And since you've made it to the end of the video, why not take a second to like this video and subscribe to my channel? After all, it's you guys' continued support that keeps me motivated to improve my content. I have a very special video coming up next, so please stay tuned as I release more information about this project. That being said, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.